Welcome to another romance audiobook, written by Forever Always. Prologue. The bullet missed me by inches, a whisper of death passed my ear, and in that same searing second, the glint in my new bodyguard's eyes hit me right in the heart. Not with warmth, not yet, but with a promise. A promise of deadly protection. My name is Eliza Vance. To the world, I was a quiet art restorer in a sun-drenched Port Harcourt studio, painstakingly bringing forgotten beauty back to life. My hands, calloused and stained with pigment, found solace in the delicate strokes, in the quiet hum of creation. This was the life I had painstakingly built, piece by fragile piece, to escape the crushing weight of my family's legacy. The Vance Group, powerful, estranged, burdened by dangerous secrets. I wasn't Eliza Vance, the hidden heiress. I was just Eliza, the artist. And that, I believed, was my greatest strength. But the bullet changed everything. It shattered the illusion of my anonymity, cracking open the carefully constructed sanctuary of my world. What I had to lose wasn't just my life, but my independence, the quiet existence I cherished, and that fragile sense of self, separate from their expectations. Emotional destruction would be losing my freedom, being forced back into a life I despised. Then came Gabriel Thorne. He was a man carved from shadows and silence, a former Special Forces operative with eyes that held a haunted past. He was tasked with protecting me from an unknown threat, a ghost in my quiet life. He was a man of few words, but his presence was a storm, his loyalty absolute, his gaze unwavering. I resented him at first, a constant constraint, a reminder of everything I was running from. He, in turn, saw me as another high-maintenance client, a pampered heiress. We didn't know then that the bullet was just the beginning, that it would force us to go on the run through the labyrinthine streets of Port Harcourt and into the heart of a corporate web. We didn't know that assassination attempts would escalate, pushing us closer, forcing our separate worlds to collide. We didn't know that fierce arguments would mask a burning desire, or that charged glances would become desperate pleas. I couldn't see it then, but Gabriel's quiet strength, his profound need to protect, would crack his professional facade, revealing a man burdened by guilt, a man I would come to see beyond his stoic exterior. And I, Eliza, the quiet art restorer, would begin to see beyond my own self-imposed limitations, understanding the true strength within me, a legacy waiting to be embraced. The bullet missed my body by inches, but the glint in Gabriel's eyes, that promise of deadly protection, had indeed hit me right in the heart. Our story began not with a bang, but with a whisper of danger and a slow, undeniable spark.
The world held its breath, it seemed, as Eliza Vance meticulously cleaned the delicate brush, her gaze fixed on the 17th century landscape cradled on her easel. Turpentine scent, sharp and clean, cut through the quiet hum of her studio, a sanctuary she'd painstakingly built. This was her universe, a symphony of precise strokes, the gentle whisper of bristles on canvas, the slow, satisfying reveal of forgotten beauty beneath layers of time. No matter how hard she tried, she knew the truth. This piece was precious, a fragile shield against a legacy she'd fought tooth and nail to escape. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoed from the outer door, an unexpected jarring note in her carefully composed day. Eliza frowned, her hand pausing midair. She wasn't expecting anyone. Moments later, a generic brown-wrapped package appeared, shoved unceremoniously through the mail slot. A delivery she hadn't ordered, a minor inconvenience that barely registered beyond a fleeting annoyance. Deep down she knew the truth. Even small disruptions carried a weight these days. As if pulled by a string, she picked up the package, turning it over in her hands. No return address, no sender name. Just her name, printed in a blocky, unfamiliar font. A shiver, light as a cobweb, traced its way up her spine. She shrugged it off, tossing the package onto a nearby table, her focus already returning to the canvas. The sunlight, warm and golden, streamed through the large studio window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Eliza carefully brushed away a layer of grime from the painting, revealing a vibrant detail, a hidden stream, a cluster of forget-me-nots she'd almost missed. A quiet triumph bloomed in her chest. Just as she admired her work, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer caught her eye. A strange reflection in the glass of the studio door, too brief to truly register. It was gone before she could truly focus, like a trick of the light. Still, a faint prickle of unease lingered, a discordant note in her peaceful studio. What did it mean? She didn't know what scared her more, the thought of someone watching or the idea that her quiet life was truly that transparent. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee, rich and comforting, filled the air as Eliza settled into her usual corner booth with Maya, her best friend. On the other hand, the easygoing chatter of the cafe was a welcome reprieve from the solitary silence of her studio. Maya, a whirlwind of vibrant energy, launched into her usual cheerful gossip. "Did you see the news about the Vance group?" Maya asked, stirring her latte. "Another breakthrough. World-changing energy tech, apparently. Are you, related to those big shots? Your last name is Vance, after all." Eliza's smile tightened, a barely perceptible tremor in her hand as she reached for her mug. "Oh, she said, her tone light, almost dismissive. "Vance is a common name, Maya. Probably just a coincidence." She deftly steered the conversation away, her casual demeanor a carefully constructed facade to hide the flicker of discomfort in her eyes. In fact, she felt a familiar pang of dread and resentment at the mention of her family, reinforcing her desire to remain separate. The crushing weight of their expectations, the dangerous secrets they harbored. It was a past she desperately wanted to keep buried. Maya, oblivious, moved on to her latest dating woes, and Eliza let out a silent breath. Truth be told, Eliza's initial goal was simply to enjoy a normal, friendly interaction, reinforcing her ordinary identity. As the conversation flowed, Eliza's internal monologue hummed beneath the surface. How many times would she have to deflect? How many more coincidences until they weren't coincidences anymore? The thought tightened her chest. Because of that, she clung fiercely to this small, normal interaction, a reminder of the life she'd chosen. Eventually, they said their goodbyes. As Eliza walked away from the cafe, she glanced back at Maya, a fleeting thought of how precious her simple, unburdened friendships were. Maybe it was fate, but then she noticed it. A sleek black car parked a little too long down the street from her studio. Its tinted windows obscured any occupants, a dark, silent sentinel. She tried to shrug it off as coincidence, a trick of her anxious mind. But a faint unease lingered, cold and persistent. The quiet hum of the city seemed to hold a new, unsettling note. Back in her studio, the familiar comfort of her space felt off. And then, Eliza noticed a faint, unsettling echo in her usually quiet building. A subtle, rhythmic thudding from the floor above, where a new tenant had recently moved in. It was too regular, too persistent to be random construction noise. It wasn't the dull thump of a dropped tool. It was something rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Or perhaps... No, she scoffed at herself. Don't be ridiculous. She dismissed it as construction, but it subtly grated on her nerves, a persistent buzz beneath the surface of her calm. Without thinking, she walked to the window, scanning the street below. The black car was gone. Later, as twilight bled across the sky, painting the studio in shades of bruised purple and gray, Eliza received an anonymous cryptic email. It simply had a single, blurry image attached, a faint silhouette of what looked exactly like her studio, taken from a distance. The angles, the distinct window panes, it was undeniable. Her heart skipped a beat, a cold prickle running down her spine. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a violation. Not only that, but the thudding from upstairs, which had paused earlier, now resumed, a slow, deliberate cadence that resonated deep in her bones. She stared at the blurry image on her screen, her breath catching in her throat. The silhouette was undeniably her studio. She deleted the email, telling herself it was spam, a malicious prank, but as she reached for her brush, her hand trembled almost imperceptibly. As if the world narrowed, Eliza felt the walls of her sanctuary closing in. Just then, the rhythmic thudding from upstairs stopped abruptly, leaving an unnatural, ringing silence that was far more unnerving than the noise itself. What's worse, the stillness felt like a predator holding its breath, waiting. A terrifying question whispered in her mind. Was she truly alone? The scent of turpentine and old oil paint usually brought Eliza peace, but tonight, it mingled with the acrid stench of gunpowder. She was hunched over a canvas, lost in the delicate curves of a Baroque angel, when it happened. Without warning, a gunshot cracked like a whip through the quiet studio, and then, glass exploded inward from the large window, spraying sharp shards across her workspace. A bullet whizzed past her ear, so close she felt the displaced air, embedding itself with a sickening thwack into the plaster wall where her head had been moments before. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. Before she could even register the sound, a blur of motion filled her peripheral vision. The studio door, which she swore she'd locked, burst open. A man, tall and powerfully built, was already inside, moving with a silent, deadly efficiency that defied the chaos. His eyes, dark and intense, swept the room, assessing the damage, the threat. He didn't waste a single word. Instead, he simply grabbed her arm, his grip firm and unyielding, pulling her away from the shattered window. Eliza, still reeling, felt a surge of pure terror, not just from the bullet but from this imposing stranger. She didn't know what scared her more, the bullet or the man who seemed to appear out of nowhere. "Move!" His voice was a low, gravelly command, utterly devoid of warmth. It was Gabriel Thorne. Eliza stumbled, her legs feeling like jelly, as he practically dragged her towards the studio's back exit, a route only she, and perhaps a handful of close friends, knew. The air outside was cold, sharp against her skin, and then the distant wail of a police siren pierced the night. A sound that usually brought comfort now felt like a beacon drawing more danger. Because of that, Eliza knew, with a horrifying certainty, that her carefully constructed ordinary world had just been violently, irrevocably destroyed. In that moment, her sole goal was survival. They were huddled in the cramped back seat of a nondescript black sedan, the engine idling quietly on a dark, deserted street. Gabriel, his profile grim in the faint glow of the dashboard lights, turned to her. "I'm Gabriel Thorne," he stated, his voice flat, emotionless. "I'm your new bodyguard. My job is to keep you alive." He then revealed he was aware of a potential threat, a whisper in the wind, but the exact nature of it was still a mystery. Eliza stared at him, her initial terror slowly morphing into a burning anger. "My bodyguard?" Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from a burgeoning fury. "Who sent you? I didn't ask for a bodyguard. I don't need a bodyguard." Every word was a desperate claw at the independence she felt slipping away. This man, with his intense presence and unwavering gaze, felt like a cage being built around her. She felt violated, angry, and fiercely resistant to this intrusion, viewing it as the ultimate symbol of her family's manipulative control. As the silence stretched, Eliza's initial goal was clear: to regain control of her life and reject this imposed intrusion. Gabriel didn't flinch. He just watched her, his expression unreadable like a statue carved from granite. "Miss Vance," he said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl, "you have a target on your back, a very real, very dangerous one. You can fight me and die, or you can cooperate and survive. Your choice." He didn't offer comfort or reassurance, just stark, brutal truth. The air thickened between them, a palpable tension born from her defiance and his unyielding will. Then, with a subtle shift in his eyes, he gestured towards the front passenger seat where a sleek black briefcase lay. "We don't have time for this, Eliza," he urged. "The threat is escalating." He wasn't asking. He was telling. which meant she realized with a cold dread her options had just narrowed to one. Before Eliza could even formulate another protest, a sudden, blinding flash of light filled the car, followed by the screech of tires and a violent, jarring impact. Another vehicle, a dark SUV, had slammed into the side of their sedan, sending them careening into a lamppost. Glass shattered again, a fresh wave of terror washing over Eliza. Her body moved on instinct, twisting away from the impact, even as Gabriel, already moving, pushed her head down, shielding her with his own body. "Stay down," he barked, his voice raw with urgency. He didn't flinch as more blows rained down on their car, the sickening crunch of metal echoing around them. Eliza felt the tremors, the terrifying force of their attackers, and the irrefutable evidence of the immediate threat finally, sickeningly, solidified in her mind. This wasn't a prank. This was a war. Gabriel, despite the chaos, moved with chilling precision. He fired off a series of quick, sharp shots from a hidden compartment, the deafening cracks making Eliza flinch. He then jammed the gear shift, throwing the damaged sedan into a desperate, impossible reverse, narrowly avoiding another ramming attempt. His calm, decisive actions during the escape, his unwavering focus in the face of death, forced Eliza to acknowledge the severity of her situation. She had no other viable option for survival. In that moment, with the roar of the engine and the splintering sounds of pursuit, Eliza grudgingly accepted his protection. It wasn't surrender, not completely. It was pragmatism. As Gabriel expertly maneuvered the car through the city streets, leaving the wreckage and the frustrated shouts behind, Eliza glanced at him. His jaw was set, a small trickle of blood near his temple, but his gaze was unwavering, fixed on the road ahead. A silent, unwilling acknowledgement of his competence passed between them. The city lights blurred outside the window, a world she once knew now feeling distant and dangerous. And then she noticed it. A faint, jagged scar just above his eyebrow. A detail she shouldn't know, yet somehow in the deepest recesses of her memory, she recognized. The car ride had been long and silent, the city lights blurring into streaks of color outside the tinted windows. Eventually, Gabriel pulled into an unmarked garage, the heavy door rumbling shut behind them like a tombstone. He led Eliza through a maze of stark, white corridors, the air smelling faintly of disinfectant and recycled air. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress. It was a secure, sparse safe house. The atmosphere was functional and sterile, a stark contrast to her artistic studio, which had been full of life and color. Eliza felt suffocated, as if the very walls were pressing in on her, stealing her breath. Her independence, the quiet life she'd painstakingly built, felt stripped away with every click of a locked door. Inside a small, impersonal living space, Gabriel laid out ground rules for their protection and surveillance. His voice was calm, steady, like a recording. "No outside contact. No leaving without me. Every move is tracked." He listed protocols for communication, for food delivery, for breathing. Eliza listened, her jaw tight. She tried to assert herself, to argue for a sliver of freedom. "This is insane. I can't live like this. I have a life, a business." Gabriel simply looked at her, his dark eyes unwavering, like a stone wall she couldn't chip away at. "Your life is currently a target, Miss Vance. My job is to ensure you have a life to go back to." He remained unmoved, his stoic demeanor infuriatingly solid. Because of that, Eliza felt a mix of confusion, frustration, and mounting fear, overlaid with a simmering resentment towards Gabriel for enforcing this golden cage. She wanted to scream, to lash out, but his calm presence somehow quelled her. How could someone be so unreadable? As Gabriel outlined their limited communication protocols, his movements were precise, economical. Eliza watched him almost against her will. She noticed the meticulous way he checked the locks, scanned the perimeter, a silent dedication that both unnerved and subtly impressed her. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of a faded tattoo on his forearm as he adjusted his sleeve, a symbol she couldn't quite decipher. a swirling pattern that seemed both ancient and sharp. A tiny, unsettling curiosity sparked within her. What other secrets did this silent guardian hold? In the quiet that followed, Eliza wondered if she was truly safe or just trapped. The next few days blurred into a monotonous routine of confined spaces and heightened senses. Still, the silence of the safe house was punctuated by Gabriel's terse commands during their impromptu training sessions. He didn't ask, he just began. Gabriel started teaching Eliza basic self-defense and evasion techniques, emphasizing situational awareness. Eyes open always, he'd grunt, demonstrating a quick disarm. Eliza was initially clumsy, her movements stiff, and her resistance was palpable. Why did she have to learn this? Why couldn't he just protect her? She felt frustrated by her own limitations. "You need to know how to fight even when you can't," Gabriel explained, his voice low, his focus intense. "Because your life depends on it." He pushed her patiently, relentlessly. He showed her how to use her environment, how to anticipate a move, how to find the weak points. Her body ached, but a small, instinctual part of her began to engage, a dormant strength stirring. During one of these drills, a minor security breach occurred. They were practicing in a windowless room, the air thick with Eliza's effort, when the lights flickered, plunged them into momentary darkness, and then snapped back on. A beat later, the low hum of an unauthorized drone, barely audible, whizzed past just outside the reinforced window. Gabriel reacted instantly, his body tensed, his head cocked, listening. He moved with a calm efficiency that chilled Eliza to the bone. He pulled out a small device, activated it, and the whirring noise abruptly ceased. "Just a probe," he murmured, his gaze sweeping the room. "Testing our defenses." His composure, the sheer capability of him, underscored the reality of their situation. Eliza felt a grudging respect for his skills. After the drone incident, Gabriel offered a rare, almost imperceptible nod of approval at Eliza's quick reaction, a silent acknowledgement that sparked a tiny, unexpected warmth within her. She saw the brief flicker of satisfaction in his eyes, a shared moment of success in the face of constant danger. As he turned away, she noticed a brief shadow cross his face, a fleeting hint of the haunted past she sensed beneath his stoicism. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken questions, with the weight of unseen burdens. Days bled into a week, then another. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by a dull ache of captivity and a gnawing sense of urgency. Meanwhile, Gabriel spent hours hunched over a laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard, a phantom hum of distant servers filling the quiet air. One evening he called Eliza over, his voice devoid of his usual terse edge, replaced by a grim seriousness. He showed her encrypted files flashing across the screen, a stark contrast to her artistic world. "Omnicorp," he stated, the name hanging in the air like a curse. "They're actively tracking you. They're behind the attacks." He scrolled through documents, images, and reports, detailing their ruthless pursuit of power and technological dominance. He explained the specific nature of her family's groundbreaking technology, a clean energy source so potent it could revolutionize the world or become a weapon in the wrong hands. Omnicorp wanted it. They were trying to steal it, and they were eliminating anyone who stood in their way. Because of that, the stakes were higher than Eliza had ever imagined. This wasn't just about her anymore. As Gabriel explained the corporate espionage, the cold glow of the screen illuminated the tension in his jaw. Eliza's gaze fell on an old, faded photograph tucked into his wallet, half visible in his open briefcase on the desk. A glimpse of a woman's face, her eyes holding a familiar sadness. A silent question hung in the air, but Gabriel quickly pocketed the photo, his movement almost imperceptible. Her thoughts spun, grappling with the revelations, but that image lingered, a small, painful detail in Gabriel's otherwise impenetrable facade. Just then, Eliza's secure burner phone, a device Gabriel had given her, buzzed. A text message. It was from an unknown sender. The words were cryptic, fragmented, but the meaning hit her like a physical blow. A desperate plea for help, implying a family member was in dire trouble and needed her. "Remember the lullaby," the message read, a detail only her estranged sibling would know. Eliza felt a mounting sense of fear and urgency, compounded by a deep-seated apprehension about her family's secrets resurfacing. This scene marked the first time she truly confronted the full, terrifying nature of the threat. It wasn't just about her life, but about a loved one, and a legacy she could no longer ignore. As the truth unraveled, Eliza realized that her silent war had just become a desperate rescue mission. The air in the safe house felt thick with a new kind of tension after Eliza's sibling's cryptic message. Eliza knew she couldn't sit still, and so, a new plan formed. Retrieve a crucial data drive from an old Vance Group server facility, hoping it would shed more light on the technology Omnicorp coveted. Gabriel, though wary of the risk, saw the determined glint in her eyes. "We go in, we get out. No heroics," he'd said, his voice a low warning. Inside the sprawling, silent corporate building, every shadow seemed to hold a threat. The hum of distant servers was the only sound. Suddenly the sterile calm shattered as alarms blared, red lights strobing through the dimly lit corridors. Omnicorp wasn't just tracking, they were waiting. A highly organized infiltration team, their movements swift and brutal, swarmed the area, cutting off their escape. Eliza and Gabriel were forced into a desperate, close-quarters escape. They ducked through cubicles, dodged laser grids, and slid down stairwells, the air thick with the smell of ozone and fear. Gabriel moved like a force of nature, his combat prowess on full display, a blur of fists and calculated strikes taking down operatives with chilling efficiency. Meanwhile, Eliza, drawing on his earlier training, moved with a surprising agility, dodging, weaving, and finding hidden pathways. The pressure built dramatically as Eliza was directly exposed to Omnicorp's ruthless power, confirming just how dangerous these people were. As a result, they ended up panting, hidden in a ventilation shaft, their bodies pressed close, the metal cold against their skin. The sounds of shouting and gunfire echoed below them. Eliza's hand accidentally brushed Gabriel's, and for a fleeting moment, the danger receded, replaced by a sudden, intense awareness of him. His scent, wood smoke and something uniquely Gabriel, filled her senses. The soft glow of his comms light illuminated the sweat on his brow, the grim set of his jaw. He was intensely focused, utterly formidable, and right here, beside her. She felt it, clear as day, a fragile, undeniable connection tightening around them. A secret shared between one breath and the next, they made it back to a new, even more secluded safe house, the stolen data drive clutched in Eliza's hand. The air hummed with their strained breath and the residual adrenaline of the escape. Still, the events of the last hour had deepened her resolve, pushing her past mere survival towards a desperate need for understanding. After a tense silence, Eliza finally managed to decrypt part of the data drive, the screen glowing with complex diagrams and stark reports. What unfolded on the screen was devastating. It revealed not only the precise nature of her family's groundbreaking, world-changing energy technology, but also irrefutable proof that Omnicorp was directly responsible for a devastating incident years ago. An explosion, innocent lives lost, a tragedy Gabriel had been involved in, a ghost that haunted his every move. His stoic facade shattered. He confessed his personal vendetta against this same corporation, his voice raw, heavy with a guilt that etched lines around his eyes. "I couldn't protect them then," he rasped, his gaze fixed on some distant, painful memory. "But I can protect you now." The lines of his professional duty and personal mission blurred, creating a desperate, fierce need to keep her safe. As Eliza stared at the devastating proof of Omnicorp's cruelty, her hand instinctively reached out, touching his arm in a gesture of unspoken comfort. Her internal misbelief that her family's legacy was just a burden began to crack, because this technology, this power, could save lives if wielded correctly. What followed was a desperate kiss in that hidden safe house, a moment of raw, untamed passion born from shared trauma and overwhelming emotion. Because of that kiss, the silence roared with unspoken desires, their shared vulnerability a burning fire. Moments later, a coded message flashed on the screen, hidden deep within the data. It was clearly from her estranged sibling, their dire situation laid bare. They needed her. They were counting on her. The stakes were no longer just about her life. They were about her family, about justice, about the profound human cost of Omnicorp's greed. And just like that, everything changed. The brief, desperate intimacy of the kiss was instantly eclipsed by a new, chilling realization. Omnicorp knew. They knew Eliza had accessed critical data. What's worse, they launched a coordinated, more brutal attack on their current safe house, a swift, overwhelming assault that left no doubt about their ruthlessness. The building groaned under the impact, plaster raining down, the sharp crack of breaking glass echoing through the rooms. "We have to move. Now!" Gabriel barked, his voice tight with urgency. This wasn't a warning. It was a desperate command. They were forced to go on the run again, plunging them back into the direct and constant pressure of being hunted. Every shadow felt alive, every distant siren a threat. The city became a sprawling, dangerous maze, forcing them into cramped, damp hiding spots, where the scent of stale water and fear hung heavy in the air. Hidden in a cramped, damp sewer tunnel, the sounds of Omnicorp operatives searching above them, Eliza pressed herself against Gabriel, the heat of his body a paradox of both comfort and burning desire. The air was thick with unspoken words, but then the tension broke. A heated argument erupted, born from their shared trauma and the blurring lines of their personal and professional lives. "Why didn't you tell me sooner about your past, Gabriel?" Eliza hissed, her voice trembling with frustration. "I could have helped." He pushed back, his voice tight. "My past isn't your burden, Eliza. My job is to protect you, not involve you in my demons." Their words were sharp, cutting, but beneath the surface a burning desire simmered, a raw acknowledgement of their intense connection. Because of that, the arguments felt like desperate attempts to control a situation that was spiraling, an external fight masking a powerful internal pull. Her emotional state was volatile, her independence clashing with her forced reliance on Gabriel, fueling their charged arguments. But the more they argued, the more their eyes met, the more the space between them burned. Her breath caught, the silent acknowledgement of the desperate kiss, the tangible reality of their burning fire, echoing in the suffocating darkness. Eliza knew, with grim certainty, that her reliance on Gabriel was now absolute. There was no going back to her quiet life. The damp, metallic scent of the sewer tunnel still lingered in Eliza's nostrils, a grim reminder of how close they'd come to being caught. But the information from the data drive, coupled with her sibling's desperate plea, had ignited a fierce new fire within her. No longer a hidden heiress running from her past, Eliza was now a woman with a purpose, to dismantle Omnicorp and rescue her sibling. Her internal misbelief that her family's legacy was merely a burden was finally shattering. Because of that, armed with partial data and a growing resolve, Eliza made a decision that would have horrified her old self. She would use her family's deep-rooted connections and resources, previously shunned, to gain crucial information. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about fighting back. She knew just the person, an old family confidant, Aunt Clara, a woman sharp as a tack with an extensive network of contacts, though notoriously difficult to reach. Gabriel, though wary of involving her powerful family, recognized the steel in Eliza's eyes. He saw her new determination, a spark of the leader he knew she could be. "It's a risk," he'd warned, his voice low. "But sometimes, a risk is the only way." Eliza arranged a clandestine meeting with Aunt Clara in a discreet, bustling old bookstore in a quiet part of Port Harcourt. The scent of aged paper and ink filled the air, a comfort from another life. Clara, a wizened woman with sharp, knowing eyes that seemed to see right through Eliza, listened patiently. "Took you long enough to come home, child," she said, her voice a dry rustle, handing Eliza an encrypted data chip hidden inside a hollowed-out book. Truth be told, Eliza felt a surge of grim determination, mixed with a profound anxiety about re-engaging with her family's world. This step was significant, a definitive commitment to confronting the danger rather than just escaping it. As Eliza left the bookstore, the cool evening breeze a welcome relief, she saw Gabriel waiting by their getaway vehicle, his silent approval a powerful anchor in her turbulent world. His gaze was unwavering, reflecting her own newfound resolve, a quiet promise of partnership. The intel from Aunt Clara was a game-changer. It revealed Omnicorp's specific plans for a major technology transfer and, crucially, confirmed her sibling's imprisonment within a lower-tier Omnicorp research facility. And so, with renewed urgency, Eliza and Gabriel formulated a daring plan. A partial infiltration to retrieve additional data, hoping to pinpoint her sibling's exact location and the transfer's schedule. The infiltration was a tense dance of shadows and suppressed breaths. They moved through cold metal corridors, the hum of machinery vibrating beneath their feet. Omnicorp's security was formidable, but Gabriel's planning was meticulous, his movements silent as a ghost. Eliza, with Gabriel's training, moved with a newfound stealth, her observational skills, honed by years of meticulous art restoration, proving invaluable in spotting hidden cameras and pressure plates. They found the data, confirming her sibling's dire situation, but during their exfiltration things went wrong. A silent alarm, triggered by a faulty sensor, went off. Lights flared. Omnicorp security swarmed. In the ensuing chaos, to buy them precious seconds, Gabriel was forced to leave behind a critical piece of their own equipment, a scrambler perhaps or a comms device, which Omnicorp would undoubtedly recover. This was a major setback, giving their ruthless enemy an advantage and signaling that Eliza was actively working against them. Because of that, the stakes were now higher. Omnicorp knew they were coming for them. What's worse, during a desperate skirmish, Gabriel took a brutal blow to his side, a sickening crunch that echoed in the sterile hallway. He grunted but kept moving, pushing Eliza forward. Later, in the relative safety of their vehicle, Eliza carefully bandaged Gabriel's arm, her fingers gentle despite their tremors. Their eyes met, the shared pain and desperation forging a silent understanding. "We're running out of time," he rasped, his gaze fixed on her, the recovered data painting a grim picture of Omnicorp's imminent technology transfer. Her goal was to retrieve the data and locate her sibling, but now it was also to ensure Gabriel survived, a protective instinct blooming fiercely within her chest. The recovered data was clear. Omnicorp was preparing for the final phase of their technology transfer within the next 48 hours. But then, they also found another message hidden within the code, specifically addressed to Eliza. It was a coded message, seemingly from her imprisoned sibling asking for help at a specific, vulnerable location, a secluded, abandoned warehouse on the city's outskirts. Gabriel immediately recognized it as a potential ambush. His face tightened, his eyes narrowed. "It's a trap, Eliza," he stated, his voice strained with urgency. "You know it is. It's too easy, too convenient." He tried to reason with her, to outline the undeniable risks, but Eliza, driven by her personal stake, by the desperate emotional pull towards her family, insisted on responding. Her logic warred with her heart. "I have to try," she whispered, her voice barely audible but firm. "It's my only chance. What if it's not?" The message also contained a hidden plea, a sentence that only Eliza and her sibling would understand. "Remember the stars above Vance Manor, Eliza. They still shine." It was a plea for Eliza to remember something specific about their family's past, a deep memory from their childhood, hinting at a hidden resource or a lost truth. Because of that hidden plea, Eliza's goal was no longer just to rescue her sibling. It was to understand what this desperate message truly meant, overriding her logical fear. Her emotional state was fraught with conflict, her internal struggle between her personal feelings and the pragmatic dangers. The air between them burned with the clash of her desperation and his professional caution. Gabriel grabbed her, his hands gripping her arms, his gaze intense. "Don't do this, Eliza, please." His voice was raw, a rare glimpse into the depths of his concern for her. She didn't respond with words. Instead, she leaned in, her body moving on instinct, her lips finding his in a desperate kiss, born from fear and intense desire, a testament to their burning fire and the terrifying unknown they were about to face. Her heart skipped, a painful, exhilarating beat, as she realized there was no turning back now. The abandoned warehouse loomed under the Port Harcourt night sky, a skeleton of rusted metal and broken glass. Eliza's heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs, a terrifying drumbeat of anticipation and dread. Gabriel, his face a grim mask of focus, moved ahead, his hand instinctively going to the grip of his hidden weapon. "Stay close," he muttered, his voice barely a whisper in the echoing silence. Even so, Eliza knew the truth. This place felt wrong. They stepped inside, the air stale and cold, smelling of decay and disuse. No sign of her sibling, no cry for help, just an eerie, heavy silence. But then, the silence shattered, not with a sound, but with a terrifying surge of movement. From every shadow, Omnicorp operatives materialized, a flood of dark figures, armed and prepared. It was a trap, just as Gabriel had feared. "Ambush!" Gabriel roared, pushing Eliza behind a stack of crates, his body a shield. What followed was a brutal, overwhelming assault. Despite Gabriel's incredible skills, the sheer numbers and overwhelming force of Omnicorp's operatives were too much. Lasers crisscrossed the air. The sharp crack of stun guns filled the space. In the chaotic struggle, Eliza saw her sibling, pale, terrified, chained, just for a fleeting second, before they were roughly pulled away by a masked operative. Eliza cried out, reaching for them, but she was too slow. Gabriel fought with the ferocity of a cornered lion, but the blows were relentless. He took a severe impact to his head, a sickening thud that resonated in Eliza's bones. His body crumpled, his movements slowing, then stopping. His eyes fluttered, then closed. Eliza watched helplessly as Gabriel fell, his protector, her shield, rendered unconscious, or worse. An Omnicorp operative, a hulking figure with a cruel glint in his eye, roughly pulled her away, her sibling's pale, terrified face flashing in her vision just before she was dragged into the suffocating darkness. The last thing she heard, faint and heartbreaking, was her sibling's whispered name, a desperate, fading cry that twisted in her gut. Just like that, everything changed, and the world seemed to narrow to pure, crushing despair. The cold, rough texture of the concrete floor bit into Eliza's bare arms. She was in a small, windowless cell, separated from Gabriel, the silence suffocating. The air tasted metallic, like fear. Later, the heavy door groaned open, and she was dragged to an interrogation room, bright and sterile yet utterly menacing. Omnicorp's CEO, a man with eyes like shards of ice, sat opposite her. He smiled, a chilling, triumphant expression that sent shivers down her spine. "Eliza Vance," he purred, his voice slick and mocking. "The hidden heiress. We know everything, dear." He revealed their complete knowledge of her identity, her family's secrets, twisting her desperate efforts to help her sibling into a pathetic attempt to regain power. He hinted that her estranged family itself may have played a role in her current predicament, sowing seeds of doubt and despair, because a divided house is easier to conquer. "It was never about their legacy, Eliza," he sneered, his voice dripping with venom. "It was always about yours." The implication of a deeper family betrayal twisted in her stomach, a bitter poison. Not only that, but he then played a distorted recording of Gabriel's voice, seemingly giving up their location. A cruel psychological tactic designed to break her. It was faint, crackling, but unmistakably his voice, confessing their movements. Eliza felt her breath hitch, a cold wave of betrayal washing over her. She fought back fiercely, desperately, but her voice was hoarse, weak. "You're lying. Gabriel would never—" The CEO simply laughed, a cold, humorless sound. Eliza was emotionally battered, physically exhausted, feeling utterly alone and without hope. Her goal was to resist giving Omnicorp any information, but she felt utterly defeated, trapped, and a gnawing sense of regret. What else could she do? The seeds of doubt about her family, about Gabriel, blossomed into a thorny, painful thicket in her mind, bringing her to the brink of her lowest point. With every heartbeat, her world tilted, and the weight of isolation became almost unbearable. Back in her cell, the silence roared, a deafening echo of her despair. Eliza curled into a fetal position on the cold floor, tears silently streaming down her face. She reviewed her life choices, seeing only a path paved with avoidance and denial. Her greatest fear, losing her independence and being trapped by her family's legacy, had seemingly come true. Here she was, a prisoner, completely at their mercy, utterly dependent. Her internal flaw, the belief that her family's legacy was a burden to be escaped, seemed tragically proven true. She questioned her own strength, her ability to escape, whether she was truly separate from her family's destructive path, or merely a pawn in their dangerous game. The distorted recording of Gabriel played over and over in her mind, a cruel loop of perceived betrayal. The man who had been her shield, her unwavering sentinel, had seemingly given her up. The profound sense of isolation and heartbreak was a physical ache in her chest. She had lost everything, her freedom, her sense of self, and the silent, undeniable love that stood sentinel by her side. "How could I have been so blind to the strength within me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "And to the silent, undeniable love that stood sentinel by my side?" The words were heavy with grief, a testament to the depth of her despair. Her soul ached, a deep, hollow emptiness where hope once flickered. The goal seemed impossible. Survival, a distant, mocking whisper. In the quiet that followed, Eliza felt only resignation, a crushing weight pulling her deeper into the abyss. The cell door creaked open, a thin sliver of light cutting through the darkness, and a shadowy figure entered, but she didn't even lift her head. She had nothing left to lose. The shadowy figure that entered Eliza's cell wasn't a guard, wasn't an interrogator. Instead, it was her sibling, Alex, their face smudged with dirt, but their eyes alight with a frantic energy. Eliza stared, confusion warring with a fragile flicker of hope. "Alex?" she whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. "I'm not imprisoned," Alex confessed, their voice low, urgent. "Not like they think. It was a plan, a desperate cry for help, to get your attention." Alex quickly explained the full, intricate truth of Omnicorp's scheme. They had been pretending to be captive, feeding Omnicorp false information while secretly gathering their own, all to lure Eliza into a position where she could be instrumental. Because of that, the distorted recording of Gabriel, the cruel hints of family betrayal, it was all a manipulation, designed to make Eliza believe she was truly alone, to break her. "They didn't know you'd fall for it," Alex explained, a quick grim smile flashing. "They didn't know you had the guts to walk into their trap for family." A wave of profound relief washed over Eliza, so powerful it almost buckled her knees. Gabriel hadn't betrayed her. He was loyal, he was true, and her sibling, far from being a helpless victim, was a resilient ally. In that moment, Eliza realized the strength within me had always been there, not despite her heritage, but as an inherent part of it, woven into the very fabric of her family's resilience. Her perspective was fundamentally changed. Her family's legacy was now a powerful tool, not just a burden. Eliza gripped her sibling's hand, her eyes blazing with a newfound resolve, a spark of defiance. "They underestimate us," she whispered, her voice gaining strength with every word. "And they don't know who they're really dealing with." What followed was a detailed exchange, Alex revealing every piece of intel, every secret passage, every weakness in Omnicorp's fortress. Eliza felt a surge of fierce determination. She then glanced at the cell door, a silent promise to find Gabriel burning in her heart. With Alex's inside knowledge, the despair that had gripped Eliza began to recede, replaced by a surge of purposeful energy. Still, the task ahead was monumental, a daring escape and infiltration plan that would require every ounce of their cunning. Eliza, her mind sharp and focused, began to formulate a strategy. She applied her intelligence and strategic thinking, often drawing on Gabriel's past training, recalling his lessons on security systems and tactical maneuvers. Her own keen observational skills, honed by years of meticulous art restoration, allowed her to notice subtle details in Alex's descriptions of Omnicorp's layout, details others might miss. "We need a distraction," Eliza murmured, tracing a finger across a crude map Alex had drawn in the dust on the floor. "And Gabriel." And so, using a hidden, secure communication line Alex had kept, they managed to send a coded message to Gabriel, confirming their location and activating a contingency he had in place, a long-shot protocol for extraction. The silence stretched as they waited for a response, every second feeling like an eternity. Then, a single encrypted ping confirmed his true loyalty and resilience. Eliza felt a powerful sense of agency, no longer reacting to events but actively orchestrating them. She overcame her final internal hurdle by fully accepting her leadership role, not as a desperate act but as a deliberate embrace of her capabilities. Because of that, she realized her purpose was clear: to protect her family, to dismantle the conspiracy, and to find the love that stood sentinel by her side. Gabriel received the coded message in a dark, hidden corner of Port Harcourt, his eyes snapping open with a renewed intensity. He pushed through his injuries, a grim smile spreading across his face. His movements, though stiff, held a new resolve, signifying his readiness to be the shield she needed. The plan was set, intricate and dangerous. As the sky darkened over Port Harcourt, Eliza and Alex executed the first stages of their escape, navigating the intricate security of Omnicorp's lower levels with ingenuity and silent determination. They used Alex's intimate knowledge of the building's hidden passages, moving through service tunnels and maintenance shafts, the smell of dust and cold metal filling their nostrils. Meanwhile, Gabriel, fueled by Eliza's message and a fierce need to protect her, created a diversion on Omnicorp's main perimeter. Explosions rippled through the distant buildings, sirens wailed, and the sound of gunfire echoed through the city night. Omnicorp's forces, distracted and thrown into chaos, scrambled to respond. This was their window. They met in a dimly lit, forgotten sub-basement, the air thick with tension and the smell of damp concrete. Gabriel emerged from the shadows, his face strained but his eyes alight when they found Eliza. Their reunion was brief but intensely emotional. No words were needed, just a shared glance that spoke volumes of relief, love, and unwavering commitment. Their hands clasped for a brief moment, a silent promise passing between them. A desperate kiss that transformed into a tender one, signifying their new equilibrium. With every heartbeat, the tension mounted as they converged on the main Omnicorp stronghold, facing increasing resistance. Security doors slammed shut, alarms blared, and armed guards appeared around every corner. But now, Eliza was no longer alone. She had her sibling, her insider, and Gabriel, her shield, her burning fire. Eliza and Gabriel stood side by side facing the imposing facade of Omnicorp's inner sanctum. "Ready?" Gabriel asked, his gaze unwavering, his hand finding hers again. "Ready," Eliza replied, her voice steady, her eyes reflecting a fierce, burning resolve. She felt it, clear as day. This was her heritage, her fight, and her chance to truly embrace her power. The inner sanctum of Omnicorp headquarters hummed with a terrifying power. Eliza, Gabriel, and Alex moved like ghosts through the high-tech corridors, their breath held tight in the anticipation of the final confrontation. The air tasted of sterile metal and looming destiny. As if fate demanded it, they found the CEO in the central control room, a cavernous space filled with glowing screens and the rhythmic pulse of unseen machinery. "It ends now," Eliza stated, her voice steady, echoing in the vast room. The CEO, a man with calculating eyes that held no warmth, turned, a sneer twisting his lips. "You truly think so, little heiress? You're out of your depth." But then Eliza, with a newfound authority that surprised even herself, didn't flinch. She used her intellect, her newfound leadership skills, and the recovered data to expose his entire conspiracy. Alex, working furiously at a console, facilitated a live hack, broadcasting the CEO's villainy to screens worldwide. The CEO's face, once composed, contorted with rage as his nefarious plans flickered across global news feeds. Meanwhile, Gabriel moved. He engaged Omnicorp's chief enforcer, a hulking figure with cold, dead eyes in a fierce physical battle. The sounds of fists connecting, grunts, and the clang of metal against metal filled the background, a primal roar of a fight for justice. This wasn't just a bodyguard's duty for Gabriel. It was the culmination of his personal vendetta, a fight for the innocent lives lost because of Omnicorp's greed. With every punch thrown, he felt the release of years of guilt, a burning fire igniting his every move. Eliza, no longer just a victim, leveraged her family's legitimate influence. She used her voice, her truth, and the exposed evidence to dismantle the corporation's plans, protect her family's legacy, and ensure justice for Gabriel's past. The central emotional question: can Eliza truly embrace her power and legacy without sacrificing the independence and authentic self she fought so hard to build? Was answered as she stood tall, a leader forged in fire, strong and independent, yet deeply connected to her purpose. As Omnicorp's systems flickered and the CEO's desperate face appeared on screens worldwide, Eliza stood tall, the symbol of her family's legacy, now a beacon of justice, reflecting her true strength. Gabriel, victorious but wounded, looked at her with unadulterated admiration and love, his own demons finally silenced. The aftermath was a blur of flashing lights, sirens, and the methodical efficiency of law enforcement. Omnicorp's operations were crippled, its CEO arrested, his empire crumbling around him. What followed was a profound sense of relief, so heavy it almost made Eliza weep. She found Gabriel slumped against a wall, his side bleeding, but his eyes clear and full of a quiet triumph. She rushed to him, her hands trembling as she helped staunch the flow of blood. Soon after, Eliza and her sibling Alex shared an emotional reunion in a quiet corner of the dismantled stronghold. There were no grand words, just a tight embrace, a testament to the bonds of family despite past estrangement. "You came," Alex whispered, tears in their eyes. "I knew you would." Eliza simply held them, feeling the warmth of their presence, a link to a past she now understood she didn't have to flee, but rather redeem. Still, the work wasn't over. Eliza, exhausted but resolute, began the painstaking process of securing her family's legitimate business interests. She worked tirelessly to ensure their groundbreaking technology would be used for good, for the betterment of the world, not for corporate greed. Because of that, every decision she made was imbued with a renewed sense of responsibility, a commitment to honoring her legacy in a way that truly mattered. Gabriel, though still recovering, remained by her side, a silent, unwavering presence, his loyalty a constant comfort. Her goal was to ensure the complete dismantling of Omnicorp and the protection of her family's legitimate assets. She felt a mix of profound relief, exhaustion, and a quiet joy at her sibling's safety and Gabriel's steadfast presence. Months later, Port Harcourt hummed with a renewed sense of purpose, a city rebuilt and revitalized. Eliza Vance had taken on a more active, ethical leadership role within her family's company, ensuring their technology was used responsibly for clean energy initiatives across Africa. Her art studio remained nestled in her vibrant but unassuming urban neighborhood, but it was no longer a hiding place. It was a creative outlet, a sanctuary for quiet contemplation and new artistic pursuits, a testament to her full integrated self. Gabriel was by her side, not just as a bodyguard, but as her partner, fiercely dedicated and deeply in love. His past trauma, though a part of him, no longer defined him. His vendetta found peace and justice. Their life together was built on mutual respect and shared purpose, a love that was both a shield and a burning fire. They had faced death, betrayal, and despair, but they had found each other, their connection forged in the crucible of shared danger. One quiet evening in their newly established home, a blend of Eliza's artistic touches and Gabriel's practical comforts, they sat on the balcony overlooking the twinkling city lights. The wind carried his scent, a familiar comfort. He reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers, a gentle squeeze that spoke volumes. A desperate kiss in a hidden safe house had transformed into a tender one, signifying their new equilibrium, a promise of forever. Eliza smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that reached her eyes. She leaned her head on Gabriel's shoulder, the city lights below, no longer a blurred danger, but a vibrant tapestry of possibility. How could I have been so blind to the strength within me? She mused aloud, her voice soft. And to the silent, undeniable love that stood sentinel by my side. She had found her balance, embracing her heritage while maintaining her true self and independence. Her goal was to build a purposeful life, embracing her identity fully, and she felt a deep sense of peace, acceptance, and fulfillment, looking to the future with optimism and confidence with Gabriel as her steadfast partner. Epilogue. The promise a year later. Eliza stood on a brightly lit stage at a global summit in Port Harcourt, passionately advocating for the ethical use of her family's technology, her voice clear and strong. Her family's name, once a burden, was now a symbol of responsible innovation. It was a testament to her full embrace of her leadership potential. Gabriel watched from the back of the auditorium, a proud, soft smile on his face, his gaze fixed on her. Later that evening, they were at their home, a cozy haven overlooking the harbor. Eliza was sketching in her renovated studio, a new landscape taking shape under her hand. Gabriel entered, carrying 2 mugs of fragrant hibiscus tea. He set them down, then knelt beside her, a small velvet box in his hand. Her heart skipped. The subtle hint of future shared adventures, the promise of a deeper commitment, shimmered in the air between them. "My partner," he murmured, his eyes full of devotion. "And my love. Always." She smiled, tears blurring her vision, as she slipped the ring onto her finger, a quiet symbol of their enduring partnership and the love that had emerged from the ashes of her old life. Epilogue. A year had passed since the dust settled, since Omnicorp crumbled, and the Vance legacy found its true, ethical purpose. Eliza Vance stood on a brightly lit stage at a global summit in Port Harcourt, her voice clear and strong, advocating passionately for the ethical use of her family's groundbreaking technology. Her family's name, once a burden, was now a beacon of responsible innovation, a testament to her full embrace of her leadership potential. From the back of the auditorium, Gabriel watched, a proud, soft smile playing on his lips. His past, once a heavy shadow, now felt like a well-tended scar, a reminder of where he'd been, not where he was going. He was no longer just a bodyguard. He was her partner, in every sense of the word. Later that evening, they were at their home, a cozy haven overlooking the sparkling Port Harcourt harbor. The space was a warm blend of Eliza's artistic touches, canvases on easels, vibrant splashes of color, and Gabriel's practical comforts, a well-stocked bookshelf, a sturdy, worn leather armchair. Eliza was sketching in her renovated studio, a new landscape taking shape under her hand, a serene reflection of her inner peace. Gabriel entered, carrying 2 steaming mugs of fragrant hibiscus tea. He set them down on a small table by her easel, his movements quiet, deliberate. He knelt beside her, a small velvet box appearing as if from nowhere in his hand. Eliza's heart skipped a beat, a sweet, familiar flutter. His eyes, once so guarded, were now open, filled with a deep, unwavering devotion. My partner, he murmured, his voice low and rich. And my love. Always. Eliza's smile was radiant, a genuine happiness that reached her eyes. Tears blurred her vision, but they were tears of joy. She slid the cool, smooth ring onto her finger, a quiet symbol of their enduring partnership, of the love that had emerged, burning and strong, from the ashes of her old life. She leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the solid, comforting weight of him beside her. The city lights twinkled below, no longer a blurred danger but a vibrant tapestry of possibility, stretching out towards a shared future. Their world, forged in fire and faith, was finally at peace.